So the Aid Group International Rescue Committee is out with its 2026 watch list, highlighting humanitarian crises across the globe. They're calling it New World Disorder. Sudan tops the list because of its brutal civil war, followed by Gaza in the aftermath of the Israel-Hamas war, then South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Haiti. Joining me now, Ciarán Donnelly, Senior Vice President of International Programs at the International Rescue Committee. And Ciarán, I want to get to those countries in just a moment, but I understand you just got back from Venezuela and the Venezuela-Colombian border. President Trump's, threats are making that quite a volatile region right now. What's your sense of the feeling on the ground? What are your thoughts?
Thanks, Kira. Yeah, I was in Colombia on the Venezuelan-Colombian border, but on the Colombian side, just the week before last, visiting with the IRC program teams there. We've been working there since 2018, supporting Venezuelan people who fled into Colombia, but also increasingly Colombians. And so there's a lot of concern about destabilization of the situation in Venezuela. We don't know what's going to happen, but any further destabilization could contribute to another massive outflow of people into Colombia. But equally, the people I met with in Colombia were very concerned about the growth in internal conflict and displacement within Colombia as armed groups have taken increasing amounts of territory and seen the worst year in a decade, as it was described to me, in terms of displacement and conflict in Colombia. And so the double impact of these two crises, of the situation in Venezuela on its neighbor in Colombia, as well as the deteriorating situation, gives real cause for concern at a deterioration in the coming months, at a time in which the humanitarian community in Colombia has been hit, as has the entire sector around the world, by a depletion of humanitarian resources. So people I met on the ground were really concerned about the confluence of these different dynamics, which in many ways exemplifies the larger picture that our watch list paints.
Wow. Well, this is clearly something we need to stay on top of with you. While we're also talking now about Sudan and South Sudan in the top 3 of your watch list. People may not be familiar with what's going on in those countries. Tell us more about why they're so high on your list right now.
So the watch list that we publish every year is our assessment of the crises around the world that are most likely to deteriorate in the coming year. We use it to guide and target our own efforts, but we also use it to help bring attention to these crises, to the 33 million people in Sudan who are in need of humanitarian assistance, the 2 million people living in Gaza desperately in need of more aid, and to try to help us understand what's driving these crises. So we've spoken in this year's report, which is available on our website, about a new world disorder. We've seen incredibly high numbers of humanitarian need around the world, 239 million people just estimated to be in need of humanitarian assistance by the UN. 89% of those people live in the 20 countries we've identified on the watch list. So it's a real concentration of humanitarian need. There are 3 things that we've identified that are driving this new world disorder. The first is a breakdown in global cooperation, not just around conflict prevention, where the UN Security Council has seen a 250% increase in the use of the veto over the last 10 years compared to the prior period, and global humanitarian funding has been slashed by 40%, but also in conflicts becoming longer, more internationalized, and increasingly driven by economic incentives. Over the last number of years, there were 100 countries involved in conflicts outside their borders. And in places like Sudan, like South Sudan, like the Democratic Republic of Congo, we're seeing economic incentives increasingly prolong and drive conflict. And the third factor at play is impunity. It's been a devastating year for the humanitarian community, with a record number of fatalities among our own colleagues in humanitarian organizations around the world, but equally for attacks against healthcare facilities, schools, civilian populations. Again, Sudan and Gaza are places that really typify these trends.
Ciarán Donnelly, you do amazing work. Thanks for sharing it with us.